Hey everybody, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Chris Peaks here back tonight with Esther, someone who had a very in-depth interview with on the murder of Jon Benet Ramsey a couple of years ago, and she came back on tonight to discuss some more aspects of the case with me. She's one of my favorite people to talk to. She's one of the experts on this case, and I always look forward to these chats. Esther, how are you tonight? And thank you for coming back on.
Hi, Chris.
So now let's go into something right here. I talk about all these, and I read these Facebook experts who know everything about the case and have passed judgment on what happened and who murdered Jon Benet. My question is, after all the investigations, you had FBI profilers brought in, you had countless, investigators look at this. You had to go to a grand jury with, all the evidence they had. Why did these people not charge Jon and Patsy Ramsey?
Because they didn't think they could win against Jon Ramsey, who was a multimillionaire.
Do you think, I don't think that just because celebrity status, people get caught up in it. I get that. But we've seen some celebrities get, convicted too. Do you think that it was his celebrity status, or that Hunter thought that they could throw up enough stuff against the wall that they could cause reasonable doubt in the mind of a juror? Because remember, it only takes one.
Grand jury came back with lesser charges. They didn't want to indict on the murder. And one of the grand jurors said that it was because they couldn't believe a mother could or would do what happened to Jon Benet. And I just think that they just didn't think anybody would convict them.
And I agree with that, because I can see where some people, just would not believe that.
I don't know why not, because it happens all the time.
It does happen all the time, but there are some people that, that love their children so much, and when they look at things, they're like, well, I just cannot believe that, a parent would ever do this to a child. But, like you said, that does happen all the time.
Well, the evidence is overwhelming that the parents killed her.
Okay, well, let's get into some of that again. I don't think we covered some of it a lot of time. Name me something, overwhelming that you think proves beyond a reasonable doubt that they murdered their child.
Patsy Ramsey's sweater fibers are intertwined in the ligature that was wrapped around her daughter's neck, in literally the knot that was
But that's
used.
not direct evidence. That's going to be circumstantial. No, it's not. There's a difference between direct and circumstantial. Well, that being fair, both of them carry the same weight of the law, but, because her
Fibers don't just sort of magically transfer to the inside of ligature knots, Chris.
Well, it depends on how this, where was these fibers? How did they get on it before you tied this ligature knot? These fibers could have been transferred in other ways.
No, they couldn't have. There's only one way fibers can get into a knot.
Okay,
The person who was wearing the garment tied it.
You have to tie a knot, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's fibers that could not have been on that rope before it commits to being tied.
Why would Patsy be lounging around the house in an expensive designer brand pea coat?
Why would she be lounging around in that?
That's the fibers that got into the ligature knot. They didn't just magically transfer there. Patsy tied the knot.
Yeah, but those fibers could have already been on the what she used to tie it with before.
Only if she was just sort of hanging around the house in an expensive designer brand pea coat and happened to pick up a ball of twine.
Yeah,
before her daughter had that rope wrapped around her neck.
Impossible. That's not outside the realm of possibility to think that could have happened.
Oh, if that's what you want to believe.
Well, she's walking across the kitchen. She sees something laying in there. She picks it up under her arm.
In an expensive pea coat that was only, as far as anybody knows, worn that one night.
As far as anyone knows, nobody can prove she wore it before
Look, there was a noose wrapped around the little girl's neck that had a knot tied in it, and what was inside the knot? Her mother's jacket fibers.
Mm-hmm.
And you're suggesting that's not proof? I would say I'd have to disagree.
This was something that, I mean, this was Patsy's rope that it was made out of, right?
It was twine that was in their basement.
Mm-hmm. And you're saying that it's impossible that any other fibers could have got transferred to that.
It's extraordinarily unlikely. It was also Patsy's handwriting on the note that referred to Jon Benet being beheaded. And
Patsy Ramsey was never identified as the person who wrote the note. They said they could not rule her out, but she was not
who
identified.
other than Patsy would have put an asterisk among on top of the E in attaché?
I don't know, but I can tell you that the handwriting experts, this even went up to a court case, a federal court case, where they picked their own handwriting experts, and she was not 100% identified as the author of the note.
Okay, well, someone would have had to have snuck in and used their pad and pen to write the note, and then somehow magically Patsy's fibers ended up in the ligature knot.
Now, I'm not conceding that is the only way possible for that to take place is someone would have already had to been in the house while they were gone to rewrite those notes. But I don't. I'll get into that in a little bit later. One of the big red herrings in this case to me is the pineapple. I mean,
how's that a red herring?
Well, I mean, y'all hang everything on the pineapple. When did she have the pineapple? When did she didn't eat the pineapple? How does that really tie down a time frame? Did she eat this pineapple before they went to bed, or she ate it before after they went to bed?
She ate it after they came home. She ate it in her own house that night. Her parents adamantly insist that she did not have any pineapple at their house, when in fact,
you don't think it's possible she could have snatched a piece of pineapple without them seeing?
Well, then why wouldn't they just say that could have happened? They say they never even saw that dish or that pineapple. They don't know where it came from.
Yeah, I would have to go back. Some parts of this case, my memory failed me. I would have to go back and read that. I'm not going to say that's not that you're wrong on that. So where was we at a while ago when we had to stop this? We was on. We're already touched on Alex Hunter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, if this kind of evidence, why did the state attorney general not come in and pick up the case?
Because they didn't think they could win, and they didn't want to be bothered. Nobody wanted to think the Ramseys did this. No one wanted to believe a wealthy corporate CEO and a former beauty queen who were multimillionaires had anything to do with this. It was much, much, much easier to just sweep it under the rug.
I kind of disagree with you on this, in the fact that everybody, they were under umbrella of suspicion. I don't think many people were really pulling for the Ramseys.
John Walsh thinks they're innocent. The only media celebrity who's come right out and said that she thinks Patsy did it is Nancy Grace.
Well, Nancy Grace, I mean, she thinks everybody's guilty.
Well, in this case, she's correct.
Well, I mean, so now, I've seen hold up, before I want to get into that, I want to touch on something else that that we were discussing. We've already discussed on here this time the cause of death, strangulation by asphyxiation by blunt force trauma. Which one was it?
Asphyxiation.
Asphyxiation. Okay, so tell me what transpired that night from the time they got home.
They got home. There's evidence to suggest that Jon Benet may have had a toileting accident of some kind. Patsy claims she put Jon Benet to bed in a red turtleneck sweater, but that sweater was found balled up on top of Jon Benet's bathroom sink, and the top Jon Benet had on was not the top Patsy claimed she put her to bed in. When Patsy was shown a picture of the red turtleneck top, she burst into tears during the police interview. And we only know that Jon Benet took a piece of pineapple and was killed at home and was strangled, and her mother's fibers are in the ligature knot.
So they put Jon Benet to bed. She has an accident. They come back in there to check on her and see she's had an accident. And at that point, Jon comes in there and sexually molests her, and Patsy chokes her to death. That's what you're telling me took place?
There's evidence to suggest she was sexually assaulted that night and on previous occasions. Jon's fibers link him to that happened, and Patsy's fibers are in the ligature knot that was wrapped around her daughter's neck. The paintbrush handle that was wrapped in the cord belongs to Patsy, and only Patsy would have known where the oversized underpants that were found on the body were. Patsy had purchased them.
So,
yeah.
So by this wetting the bed, whatever, that prompts them to join in a almost ritual killing of their child for wetting the bed, and it leads with him sexually abusing her and her choking her to death.
I'm telling you that we know she had a skull fracture. We know she was strangled to death. We know she was sexually assaulted that night and on previous occasions. We know the father's fibers link him to the sexual assault. We know the mother's fibers are in the ligature knot. And we know there's evidence to suggest she had a toileting accident that night that people who lived in the house denied.
So then what I just stated, that toileting accident led to her being sexually molested and choked to death and bashed in the head with a blunt object.
The lead detective on the case believed that it led to the skull fracture, and that then she was strangled to present an attempt to make it look like a dangerous predator had broken into the house.
Mm-hmm. What prompted the sexual molestation to take place?
The fact that whoever it was who had been sexually assaulting her was a pedophile. So
they both go in there together and do all this at the same time while Patsy watches on while she molests his daughter?
I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm just telling you what the facts are.
Yeah. So but what you're alluding to, the facts are, and they were in on this together. They both went in there.
At some point, they colluded.
They colluded because, I've watched the interviews with the motor police, and they're talking to her about a bedwetting accident. I know people who believe the Ramseys are guilty think the intruder theory is ridiculous. To sit there and tell me that two parents strangled their daughter, bashed them in the head, and molested her and murdered her over a bedwetting incident is the most asinine theory that could ever be put up. Anybody with, I don't know how to say this. I've never heard of that theory before.
You've never heard of parents killing their kids? Casey Anthony, Chris Watts, Diane Downs?
That's not what I said. I said I've never heard of this theory before of parents killing their kids over bedwetting.
It happens all the time. It's actually the most common trigger for fatal child abuse, the second most common, with crying being the first. And in fact, one of the leading child abuse experts on the case who studied the autopsy slides said that he thought that was what happened.
And instead of one parent snapping, both parents snapping.
Well, I don't know that they both snapped. I know somebody strangled her, and the fibers suggest it was Patsy. Somebody bashed her on the head.
And this just aroused Jon Ramsey so much to go in there and molest her?
Yeah, I don't know when he did that, but it happened on numerous occasions.
Numerous occasions. And how can you prove that?
It's in the autopsy report.
But did not a family doctor say he's seen no signs of that?
Their pediatrician was a friend of the Ramseys and was probably dispensing drugs to Patsy, who was probably an addict.
So he was going to put his medical license on the line by lying for them.
Why not? Who's going to do anything to him about it?
Well, the Colorado examining board, and if you're
Nobody
covering
cared. No one was going to do anything.
So what you've got now is you've got a entire conspiracy going on between the Boulder Police Department, the medical examiners, the basically the government of Colorado to keep the Ramseys innocent.
I've never suggested that. I don't know where you're getting that from. I said the prosecutor's office didn't want to move forward with this.
Mm-hmm. And you just said that this man was covering up for them.
The prosecutor was, yes.
Yeah, but you said that the doctor was, if he's not denying that he's...
Yeah, the pediatrician, yes. There's evidence to suggest he was drugging Patsy. He's not going to want to get involved in this. He didn't do an internal exam on the child anyway.
This is a pretty extensive conspiracy you got going on here.
Well, it happened. The pediatrician was at their house the night Jon Benet died.
Okay.
He dispensed drugs to Patsy. This is a fact.
Their pediatrician was at the home of the Ramseys the night she died and gave drugs to Patsy?
The morning the body was recovered.
Well, why is that conspiratorial that the child's doctor came over?
What would he be doing there? Patsy wasn't his patient. And the actual patient, Jon Benet, was dead.
Right. Well, why would you say he was dispensing medication to Patsy?
Yes.
And what medication?
Sedatives.
What is wrong? What would be wrong with giving somebody a sedative who just lost their child?
He's a pediatrician. He's not her doctor.
But any doctor can prescribe medicine.
Okay, well, back to the question of why it was that Jon Benet's doctor didn't think she had been abused or do any kind of internal exam or report that this child was being brought to him with repeated UTIs. I'm telling you, he was a friend of the family, and it's possible he was dispensing medications to Patsy.
So he was just going to cover up a crime.
Well, I don't think he thought anything was going on.
But if he's not reporting on a child molestation, he's covering up a crime.
Well, yes. I guess you could look at it like that.
So this man is going to cover up the molestation of a daughter because he's friends with the family.
I think he just didn't think they could have done anything like that.
John's other kids, how many accusations of child rape took place there?
They're not going to say anything.
Oh, so one of them's been molested when she was a child. Her sister gets killed, and she's not going to ever come forward about what happened?
The lead investigator on the case, or actually the first detective to arrive on the scene, was an experienced sex crimes investigator, and she believed that Jon Ramsey had repeatedly sexually abused Jon Benet, and the Boulder Department of Social Services agreed with her that was what happened.
Based on what? Just because she was on the scene? What did she see that made her believe that?
I don't know. I mean, it hasn't been made public, but that's what she thought. A child abuse investigator went in and investigated and said that there was all sorts of weird stuff going on there. That in Jon Benet's bedroom, all of her pairs of underpants had post-wash stains, and a former maid said that the little girl used to leave excrement in her bed, and that she displayed all sorts of weird behaviors. She, wasn't hygienic and was allowing adults who were not the parents to come into the bathroom with her.
She was allowing what now?
Adults who were not her parents to come in and help her in the bathroom, was calling them in, and stuff that was not age appropriate.
Because we kind of focused on, the events leading into that night. What time frame here are we talking about that the Ramseys went to bed and that the murder took place?
Well, they arrived home at about 10, and really, it's unknown. Patsy called the police at about 5 a.m. and the body was found at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So presumably there was about a 5-hour time frame where all of this could have transpired.
Are you saying that the murder took place from the time from 10 a.m. till 5 a.m., or they may have murdered, or the murder may have took place after she called the police?
No, I mean, she was killed before the police.
Okay. That's what I was thinking too. I was like, wait a second, how would that happen? Okay. So I think we've made a good kind of outline here of, what happened that night. So for our next segment, what would you like to cover then?
Well, I mean, we could just walk through the evidence is really what is on the body.
All right, I'll tell you what. Yeah, that sounds like it. Next time, let's do a program about the fibers that was found on the body. If you're showing the groups, because I think I hit you with some tough questions, and I think you gave some great answers, and it gives me some stuff to do my homework on about the fiber stuff next time we talk.
Okay, whatever works for you.
Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed it.
Oh, it's always fun to talk to you.
Oh, well, it's always fun to talk to you too. All right, Chris Pick's here with Esther tonight, and it's been a great conversation, and we will talk again later in the week.
Okay, love you.
Love you.